Welcome, listeners, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the OIC podcast. My name is Noah Hansen, here with your co-host, Kevin Peterson. How are you doing today, Kevin?
I'm great.
Love it. All right, and today we are talking about empowering self-talk. So a very powerful episode, one that is applicable to anyone and everyone's life starting right now. Kevin, can you start us off here with what you have to say about ancestral empowering self-talk?
Ancestral positive self-talk. There's two elements to self-talk. You've got the positive and the negative. The beauty of ancestral self-talk in both men and women have been able to reshape, reform, reground, and restore all of humanity one person at a time. The thoughts, the ideas, the inspiration, the aspiration, the motivation, the self-care of each individual that came before us has molded us to be able to grow us, to be able to develop us into absolutely outstanding people. Incredible human beings, right?
Amen.
But how they did it was in a selfless way. Because here's why. When you have the right self-talk going on in your brain, your own inner dialogue, whatever it is that's going in, physically has to come out. It's physically impossible to be able to have thoughts, feelings, and emotions in your brain and to be able to not then act out on them, right?
Yeah, right. Have you ever had a thought that you didn't particularly like and your face made a grimace? Or had a memory go through your head that brought a smile to your face? It's exactly a direct output into the physical from your inner dialogue.
And that's without saying a single word, right?
That's right.
So imagine being able to open up your mouth to be able to produce sound that created a picture in someone's mind that allowed them to be inspired, be uplifted, to be guided, right? But in a new way. Because everyone has their own input. Everyone has their own way of being able to express themselves. Our ancestors did it best because they left it limitless so that we can be unlimited in every way. So ancestrally speaking, they really set the groundwork, the tone, and the vocabulary to allow us to be able to be who we are today, to be able to manifest, to be able to create great and outstanding books, movies, TV programs, and the such.
Podcasts.
Because of how they spoke the words of positive self-talk and affirmations. It then opened up naturally the ability to be able to speak in picture form, which we'll go into later, to be able to allow you to be able to have the reality you have today.
Right.
So ancestrally speaking is that the more that you speak to your elders, the better off you will be when you become one. And you'll only understand this when you have the age difference over someone by over 20 years. So, to get into the now definition of positive self-talk, it is an inner monologue that makes you feel good about yourself and everything going on in your life. It's an optimistic voice in your head that encourages you to look at the bright side, pick yourself up when you fall, and recognize when you fail.
Yeah. Thank you for that definition. It's like a self-induced turning point of positive forward momentum.
Right, but did you pick up on those three? Everything in positive comes in threes, right?
Yeah.
So, to reiterate, it's an optimistic voice in your head that encourages you to look at the bright side, pick yourself up when you fall, and recognize when you fail.
Yeah.
But you have to understand is that every failure comes with success.
Right. It's how you deal with that recognition that's important. And positive self-talk is a key feature of moving forward from that failure versus letting that failure drag you down.
But failure is never failure until you put a what to it?
Well, a perspective to it that's unrighteous, a perspective of, disempowerment, I would say.
That's great, kind of in the box, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm assuming.
But what is failure? It is a word. You have to put the letters of the alphabet together to be able to spell it in order to be able to know what it is, to be able to experience it.
Yeah.
Again, a 3-step process. The reason why I'm talking about this 3-step process is because later on in this podcast, I'm literally going to blow you away on how simple it is to be able to completely stop, alter, recondition your brain to be able to think in a new way, to act in a new way, and to then manifest in a way that not only benefits you, but everyone around you simultaneously without thinking about it.
And I'm guessing that's on 3 steps.
You are absolutely correct.
Powerful stuff, Kevin. What else you got?
The second thing that I want to talk about are skills or a skill set. It's important to be able to know these tips. And these tips can be able to help you to be able to recognize, realize, and then to be able to restore your way of thinking. Identify negative self-talk traps. Certain scenarios may increase your self-doubt and lead to more negative self-talk. Check in with your feelings. Stop during events or bad days and evaluate your self-talk. Find the humor in the most saddest of scenarios and situations. Surround yourself with positive people. And then finally, give yourself positive affirmations in a genuine way. So even on your worst day, I always say, thank you, God, for allowing me to be able to experience the worst day that I could have ever had in my life, because that's the last one that I'm going to have absent of you.
Great example of positive self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, write that one down, listeners. That is one important way to deal with your bad days in life.
Next thing I want to talk about is kids. Anyone that has had children will understand that often we, the parents, get caught in less than adequate words. Hearing back from your child the words that you didn't directly intend to say, but they picked up and were able to speak very fluently, very quickly.
Yep.
The reason why children can do that is because they are not, here's another 3, programmed, conditioned, and trained to not to. Right? It's only when we, the parents, step in and say, no, don't do this. No, don't do that. Right?
Yeah.
Don't say this. Don't say that. Right? when you have to be able to continuously justify the words that are coming out of your mouth, it's often better to remain quiet and right versus boisterous and wrong, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, getting back to the kids is that the reason why kids can be able to adapt, and then be able to articulate these words back is because there is no negative driving them saying that they can't.
Yeah.
But we humans try to, as quickly as possible, to extinguish that from every child unintentionally, having someone be able to come to our level of communication and understanding without having to go through the struggle, without having to go through the fight, without having to go through all this pure pressure of having to be able to verbally perform at a certain level. Some people get mad, angry, and frustrated because they have been through so much to where other people have not been through a single thing and have been able to achieve great things. It's important to be able to recognize your agenda when speaking to someone, when speaking to the public, when speaking to yourself.
Yeah.
Agenda is going to be the heartbeat of this whole entire conversation. Whose agenda are you mimicking in your mind? What is allowing it to stay there? And why are you in a form of worshiping those words that didn't come from you in the first place?
Right. You can either be your worst enemy or your best friend.
But you can't be both.
You can't be both.
Right. So, what is positive self-talk and how does it work? Very simply. Anything that you can say negatively, rebuke, and everything else from there will become positive. Now, everyone thinks there's a trick. Everyone thinks that there's a catch. Everyone thinks there's a hook coming. But I like breaking things down so simply that even children can put the building blocks together and to be able to create a home, right?
Yeah.
So anything negative you can replace with something positive, but you have to be able to believe, have faith, and trust in those actions in order to get that reaction. It's when we doubt, it's when we fear, when we subdue our intelligence because we don't feel the part, we don't act the part, we don't resonate with our own being, do we then start to belittle not only our own words, but our own self-talk back to ourselves. So imagine if your brain had a one-way mirror and you could only see the lies of your mind. How much differently would you mind your mind versus just looking through that one-way glass and wishing you didn't?
Yeah. Another point, what if you could see everything that was going on in your internal dialogue and how it was affecting everything outside of you? You know, what would change? What would you want to change in your thought life? So we're all used to seeing the image of the one-way glass to where the criminal is standing in a row, in a line, and someone is pointing that criminal out in a group lineup, right? Yep.
Imagine now, instead of criminals there, imagine being able to see different pictures of you accepting a lie, accepting a rumor, accepting something less than the truth. And then you instead of doing any research, any homework, just auto-adopted it. like you just had a child without having a child, but you don't know how to grow a child. You don't know how to develop a child. You don't know how to be able to take care of a child, right? But you will literally adopt these thoughts, these feelings, these emotions, these actions without your soul's content. Because if you knew better, you wouldn't do it in the first place. So it takes a elder person, someone that's more whole and complete as a person. It could be just someone 6 months to a year older than you. It doesn't have to be 20, 30, 40, 50 years older, right?
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that it takes a view of the mind to be able to realize that if you don't mind your mind, someone else's influence will be driving you. And everyone, and I mean everyone, talks about slavery and how slavery was abolished. But we failed to abolish it in our minds. Slavery is the number one thing that every race on the planet deals with, because we enslave ourselves with the thoughts, the feelings, and the emotions of other people's actions versus our own.
Right. We can be enslaved by false ideas, false beliefs.
All of that, right?
Yeah.
So in order to be able to make that mind meld switch or change, is that you have to learn the power of rebuking.
Yes.
Rebuking immediately stops that from growing, that thought, that feeling, that emotion from growing, because you are now all knowing that it didn't come from you. So some people say, oh, well, some of this is spiritual warfare. True. But the second side of the coin is that in order to have spiritual warfare, you would have to have accepted it too.
Right, and that's very difficult for people who don't recognize that it's spiritual warfare. A lot of times people blame themselves for certain thought processes.
And again, that goes back to slavery.
Yes.
I'd much rather punish myself than punish someone else. I really don't want to be able to inflict harm or hurt on anyone else. So I will imprison myself. I will punish myself. I will, put a stake in the ground like an elephant and be told that I can't go anywhere.
Yep.
Don't be like an elephant. Be the peg in the ground and be so rock solid in your foundation that you don't need an elephant at the other end of the chain, because your elephant becomes the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions.
Yeah, right. Right.
Are you starting to be able to see the picture of what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's a great metaphor. And for those of you who don't know the backstory to this whole elephant metaphor, you can train an elephant to stay in one particular area by training them up as children. And see, even these elephants are falsely trained. It's good, for the people who are training them. It's getting their work accomplished that they're intending to accomplish, but it's not good for the elephant necessarily. When you train a baby elephant by putting it on a chain that it cannot break free from when they're a child, then they will eventually give up. They'll stop pulling at the chain. And then when they're older, you can attach them to the same chain, but it's not strong enough to keep a full-grown elephant attached, but yet they will not pull against it still because they were force conditioned to believe that they can't break free, so they won't even try. So that's kind of the backstory to it. You can do that to yourself in your own mind. Put a condition on yourself that you feel that you can't break free from, but you actually can, if you realize that you can, and if you put the steps in place to be able to do that.
And that's personal self-empowerment, right?
Right, and then the power of rebuking as well.
Absolutely. So, now that I have taken you on a gentle walk through our ancestry to be able to kind of get you up to speed to where biblically I have got to really be able to talk to you. for most people, the Bible is just a fun little book. For most people, the Bible is a difficult book to be able to read.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to understand is that there's 66 individual books within the Bible talking about hundreds of different people that have all gone through similar, if not worse, situations than you. Here's where my intellect kicks in, is that if I want to get to the source of any problem, any situation in life, I have learned that I need to go to my elders for guidance, for counsel, for support, right? And for those people that may not have that type of network of people, there is one thing and only one thing that you need, and that's the Bible. But you need a Bible that literally in the back of the Bible, you have a whole dictionary. So if you want to know what pain is, or what pleasure is, or what Adam said to Eve, or any of these topics, it's a topical Bible that you can go right down the list: pain, pleasure, whatever, right? Pick a topic that you are being affected by, and it'll tell you exactly, verse by verse by verse, what these people did, what they said, how they experienced it, and then how they overcame it, right?
Yeah.
But here's another footnote. The reason why I'm talking about this is that wouldn't it be beautiful to everyone that's listening right now to this podcast to create your own family Bible of your own testimony, of your own story, of what you had gone through in life, so that when you have children and they literally start reading about everything that you went through to get to where you're at today, could they then be able to find themselves within you? The greatest gift you can give a child is wisdom, knowledge, and experience. So I encourage each and every one of you to be able to create your own family Bible. Problems, situations, and solutions, right?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Because when you do that, you not only have something to be able to pass down to someone else, but if you don't have children, if you have no one else to be able to give it to, the next available person prior to you passing away, it just may be appointed to them in every way, right? You have no idea what the power of God can do. So if you allow yourself to be open-minded, to be a vessel, and to be the number one thing, coachable, to be able to learn all these, what some people call hidden secrets, to be the magnificent you, right?
Yeah.
But if you can be able to tap into, to be able to learn, grow, and develop into this amazing human being, male or female, imagine if that was all that you did in life was to accomplish being that. That would be absolutely astounding, right?
Yeah, the simple life is oftentimes a very good path to take.
And here's why. We all have these programmings to be something other than what God created us to be.
Yep.
Once you know your exact purpose in life, the games stop. The abuse stops. The victimizing stops. The slavery stops. And most importantly, the negative self-talk in your brain stops. I have counseled over 150,000 people in my lifetime. And what they have all told me is that they want the thoughts to go away. They want these stinking thinking thoughts to go away. And how do you get them to go away? Some people turn to alcoholism. Some people turn to drugs.
Right, numbing it.
And it's more than numbing, it's escaping.
Right.
Escapism. But more importantly, the bottom line is that you can't ever escape you. So the toughest pill to swallow is a pill of truth. And it's much easier to fall back in love with who you are as a person than have to be able to constantly recreate something within you that you're not. So if no one's ever told you that they loved you unconditionally, let me be first today to tell you that I love you unconditionally in every way.
Thank you, Kevin. Very touching ending there. To add to the biblical part of this podcast, I'm going to be reading Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. But keep in mind while I read this, that this doesn't just apply to talk coming out of our mouths. It also applies to the self-internal dialogue that we're telling ourselves. And Ephesians 4:29 reads as following, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." And then in the Psalms, there are instances where the psalmist writes to himself, and he says things along the lines of, "Bless the Lord, O my soul." So he's speaking directly to his soul. And it's a conversation to himself on what is right for him to do. He's telling himself, he's giving him positive affirmations of where he should go. And then to finish off this podcast, I want to give you some science behind positive self-talk. So scientifically, did you know that when our beliefs are challenged, it's very, very easy for any human on this planet to go into fight or flight mode when beliefs are being challenged? Now, it's my assumption, or it's my hypothesis, I suppose, to say that when you're having self-thinking that's negative, that's challenging your beliefs about yourself, things such as "I'm such a failure," if you haven't assumed that belief yet, then it may put you in fight or flight mode. Now, if you don't know the power of rebuking, then you may be stuck in that fight or flight mode for a longer period of time than is healthy. Mm-hmm. And not only does this have many different health ramifications, but it also allows your brain to get stuck in a pattern where it can continuously think similar thoughts, such as that. And then you accept them much easier. Now, we don't want you to be able to do that, which is why we talk about the power of rebuking. So when your beliefs are being challenged in your thought processes, when you're feeling that your thinking is taking you in a wrong direction, and you're starting to breathe heavier, you may be getting a little clammy, you're getting in states of anxiety. That is what's called a high beta brainwave state that you are now in. That's the fight or flight brainwave state. And in order to get out of the fight or flight, the high beta brainwave state, you need to either go up to a gamma or down to an alpha. So increase the frequency or decrease the frequency to get more relaxed. Now, when you increase the frequency, that's something where you have some sort of revelation. Mm-hmm. So a good example of this is if you're having a self-induced thinking of failure, then what you can switch your thoughts to is some revelation of how this failure has helped you grow, how you've become more patient, more strong because of it, something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And in order to get down to the alpha from the stress brainwave state, then all you have to do is start breathing a little bit deeper. And HeartMath, the Institute of HeartMath, has a great process, a 3-step process actually, called the Quick Coherence Technique that you can start doing consciously to be able to bring yourself out of those negative brainwave states and get back into something that's more healthy for you. So if you want to learn that, I will have a link in the description where you can learn that. And we are out of time for this podcast, Kevin. So quick closing words for us. Do you have anything that you want to send the listeners off with?
Yes. Be mindful of what you say to yourself. And if you don't want to hear it back from someone else, then change it. Because you are the change that people are seeing and wanting to see in the world today. To be the best you can be is to be the best representation of the I am within you.
Yes, and what a gift that can be for you and for everyone who you surround yourself with. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Omnipresent Information Connection podcast, and we will meet you on the next episode.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.